Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know how we do things here. We want to get smart on stuff that really matters fast.
Absolutely.
And today we're diving straight into something that's like the bedrock of these whole regulated industries.
Oh, for sure.
It's all about good laboratory practices. We call it GLP.
GLP. Yeah.
And think of this deep dive as like your backstage pass to understanding how all that safety testing that goes on behind things like your medications,
Right.
why it's so incredibly thorough and rigorous.
Yeah. Before any new drug makes it to the market or even like a pesticide,
Yeah.
it goes through a whole battery of what we call non-clinical lab studies.
Okay.
Basically studies done in animals or, in a controlled lab setting.
In vitro and stuff like that.
Exactly. And GLP, that's the set of rules, the
Yeah.
guidelines that make sure those studies are done to the highest possible standard.
The gold standard.
The gold standard. Yeah. Quality, reliability, integrity, the whole 9 yards.
So, listener, if you're with us today, our mission is pretty straightforward. We're going to break down GLP for you, what it's all about, why it matters so much.
Sounds good.
Let's kick things off by talking about the people involved, the ones running these studies.
Sure. So right at the top, you have management.
Okay.
They're responsible for setting the tone, making sure everyone's following the rules and, providing all the resources the team needs.
Makes sense.
Then you've got this key figure called the study director.
Okay.
You can think of them as the captain of the research ship. They're ultimately in charge of making sure the study is done right, reliable, results, the whole thing.
So they're accountable.
Totally. And of course, everyone working on the study, they got to be qualified and properly trained. That goes without saying.
So you've got all these qualified people doing their thing. How do we make sure everything's actually being done correctly?
That's where our quality assurance unit comes in.
Okay.
We call it the QAU. It's like an internal watchdog, completely independent. They monitor the studies, inspect the facilities, even audit the final reports.
Wow.
And they report directly to management. No funny business.
Checks and balances.
Exactly. It's all about making sure there's no bias. Everything's super transparent.
So the people are crucial, but I imagine the environment where these studies happen, that's got to be important too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The facility, they've got to be designed to prevent any kind of contamination.
Okay.
So you'll have separate areas for the test systems, the substances, the labs, even the archives.
So many moving parts.
It's essential for keeping everything pristine,
Related.
Exactly.
Right.
And of course, you got to have strict environmental controls, temperature, humidity, air quality, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And proper waste disposal is a biggie too.
Of course.
Can't be cutting corners there.
And what about the equipment they're using to conduct these studies?
So the equipment's got to be fit for purpose, of course, regularly maintained, cleaned, calibrated, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. Every single maintenance activity, every cleaning, every calibration, it's all documented meticulously.
No stone unturned.
Exactly. And then you get into this really interesting area when computers get involved, for data collection or analysis.
Oh, yeah. That's got to add another layer.
Those systems have to be validated to make sure they're accurate. It's like making sure your calculator gives you the right answer every time, only the stakes are way higher.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've covered the people, the environment, the equipment. Now, what about the actual subjects of these tests, the things being tested?
Right. So whether we're talking about animals or cells in a dish,
Right.
they all need proper care, appropriate housing, and clear identification. Can't be mixing things up.
Of course.
With animal studies, their well-being is paramount. There are strict ethical guidelines in place,
Right.
and there's always this adjustment period before the testing starts. We call it an acclimation period. Gives them time to settle in, and of course, you always have control groups as a point of comparison, to see the effects of the test substance.
Yeah, so it's not just any random stuff they're testing, right?
Yeah.
These substances themselves have to meet certain standards.
Absolutely. The test and reference substances, they're carefully characterized.
Okay.
We need to know their identity,
Mhm.
their purity, their stability, all of it. And it's all documented meticulously.
Wow.
And then they're handled and stored super carefully to prevent any kind of contamination or degradation,
So many safeguards.
And we keep samples for future reference just in case, we need to double check something.
So we've talked about all the pieces now. How does a study actually get carried out in this GLP world?
So it all starts with a really detailed written plan called the study protocol. It's like the blueprint for the whole thing.
Okay.
It outlines everything, objectives, procedures, timelines, the whole 9 yards.
So it's super specific.
It's got to be. And the study director and the QAU, they both have to sign off on it before anything can start.
Two sets of eyes.
Exactly. Then on top of that, you have what we call standard operating procedures, or SOPs.
Okay.
These are like step-by-step instructions for all the routine tasks, ensuring consistency no matter who's doing what.
So it's all about following the plan and keeping meticulous records.
You got any deviation from the protocol or the SOPs, it's got to be documented and explained thoroughly.
Wow.
And all the data that's collected, it's got to be accurate, traceable, the whole deal. And finally, at the end of the study, a comprehensive report is prepared summarizing everything.
So final report.
Yeah, and all the raw data, the protocols, the SOPs, the reports, everything, it's all securely archived for future reference and audits, you know.
So this level of detail and rigor, why is it so crucial in the grand scheme of things?
Well, GLP, it ensures the integrity and reliability of the safety data that regulatory bodies rely on. You know, the FDA, the EMA, these guys, they need to be able to trust the data they're getting.
Yeah, so those medications are safe and effective.
Exactly. And without GLP compliance, that data can be rejected outright, which means potential delays in getting important medications to the people who need them.
Or unsafe products could end up on the market.
Exactly. It's a big deal. And then there's this whole concept of mutual acceptance of data internationally.
Okay.
So if countries trust each other's GLP standards, then a product that's been tested in one country might not need to go through the exact same tests in another country.
That makes things a lot more efficient.
It does. It can really speed things up globally.
So listener, to bring it all home, GLP, it's like this foundational framework that makes sure all the safety data behind the products we use every day, it's trustworthy.
It really is. And here's a thought for you to ponder. Think about all these seemingly small, detailed practices within GLP. They're all connected, right?
They are, yeah.
What kind of domino effect could even a minor failure in the system have on the safety and effectiveness of the products we rely on every day?
That's something to think about.
It is food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into GLP. See you next time.
Take care.